Welcome, everyone. Good morning, noon, or evening, depending on where you are joining us from. I am Dr. Bushra Anjum, and I am the host for the ACM-W Celebrating Technology Leaders series. This series has been designed to demystify careers in the technology industry, especially for women. We discuss career options, career opportunities, and career challenges. In each episode, we invite women leaders who have been successfully architecting their careers in computing. We celebrate their stories and we learn from their experience. Today, we are focusing on the blockchain technology. A few logistical reminders. I will be facilitating the discussion for the first 45 minutes, and the final 15 minutes are for you to ask any questions to our panelists. You can do so by typing them in the Q&A window and submitting. Feel free to write in and send your questions throughout the discussion. If I'm unable to get to all the questions, I'll make sure that they're routed to the panelists and that you get a response back. Thank you for spending the next hour here with us. We will make every effort to make it worth your while. So we have two goals today for this session. One, to get an intuitive understanding of blockchain. And two, what are the current industry careers and opportunities available? We are not going to focus on any particular products like cryptocurrencies or NFTs. Rather, we are going to talk about the underlying technology of blockchain and the tech industry careers that it's enabling. We will discuss some of its structural properties, talk about some of the non-finance use cases, and some of the issues surrounding the technology. It's new. The long-term future of blockchain is unknown, and its benefits are still being tested. At the same time, especially in the last 4 years, the jobs related to blockchain are on the rise. It's hard to predict the future of blockchain, and it's hard to ignore the present trend as well. So let's take on some of this in the next hour. What is hype? What is reality? What is the present? And what may be the future? Today we have with us Lisa Calkins, CEO of HalfBlast Solutions. We have Tatyanas, who is the Director of Technology Innovation at Ericsson. And we have Bushra Anjum, founder and CEO of DigiWire, and also a digital creator and research analyst for blockchain and metaverse. Welcome, panelists. Thank you for joining us. All right, we'll start with something very simple, basic. Please tell us about your educational background, career journey, and how you got to your current role. We can start with Lisa.
Thank you. I'm thrilled to be here, and I'm glad you've put this together. So I guess I'll start with an embarrassing story. Isn't that the way to kick off a panel here? So my passion for technology and how I get involved in computer science started because the men's high school tennis coach was super hot. There you go. There's the truth. And since I couldn't join men's tennis, I had to figure out, me and my girlfriend had to figure out some model. Well, sure enough, he was assigned to teach the first computer science course in high school. So of course, we signed up for computer science to be able to be around this tennis coach. We were the only two women, or two girls at the time, right, that had signed up for the class. And so, you know, the crazy part is we fell in love with computer science. Maybe also the teacher, but we definitely fell in love with computer science, and it was solving these puzzles, and it was exciting and fun. And so that led me and my girlfriend to start to go to the University of Illinois and pursue a career in computer science. Following that, I ended up working for Accenture, which is one of the largest, of course, consulting companies on the technology side. And I really just loved working on innovative technology. Of course, there it's a lot of enterprise old technology. So what did I do? I started my own company. So I started my own company and grew it, sold it, started another company. So I'm one of those very serial entrepreneurs, you would say, and love working with startups and love working with women. And so that is my background of my embarrassing way I got started, but I'm so grateful that that was the way it happened. So.
Hey, own your story. Yes. Tatiana.
Yeah, let me try telling you maybe a little story too. The thing about me is I always love to set myself somewhat unachievable goals. For example, right now I set myself this goal for the last year or so. I want to do an Ironman, and I want to finish an Ironman. So that has been driving me a lot, and that kind of proves that someone making a career, a female making a career, doesn't always need to be very polished, because I'm so known to just like, after a long run, drop out of the shower, join a meeting, like all shaggy looking and everything, without makeup and whatnot. And it's fine, and no one cares. And I think that that's a great thing that I've been taking away. But also, like before, like joining computer science, I was like, why not? Getting 3 degrees, why not? Moving to Silicon Valley, why not? You know, and things only seem unimaginable and unachievable until you actually start doing them and working towards them and actually doing them. I have a Bachelor of Science in Scientific Programming. I have a Master of Science in Operations Research, and somewhat recently completed an Executive MBA as well. Those degrees are from Germany and the Netherlands. And then I've been a software developer for like 7 years. That's how I started my career. And I basically was kind of discovered in this global talent program that my company Ericsson has. So I work for Ericsson, which is a telecommunications company of like 100,000 people. And I was fortunate to do this talent program. They sent me all over the world. I did trainings everywhere. I went to India, Korea, US, Sweden a lot too. And after that, I was like, okay, now I want to do something super innovative and take those skills and really like use them. So I moved. I actually applied to a job that sounded super innovative, like driving new business, all the innovative technologies, and it's in the Bay Area in California. I was like, okay, let's try, let's do it. So I moved, and this is kind of where my trajectory to this current role started. That I first was the global prototyping lead for all of these new emerging business activities. And then I became from that the main technical responsible for all our interactions with the AWS account. And from there, a recruiter reached out to me, and he was like, hey, there's this role, and I think you would be perfect for it, an internal recruiter, of course. And it was basically the director of technology innovation responsible for all of North America and reporting to the CTO of North America. And that's what I do now, and really drive and study and discover disruptive technologies and see how we can really apply them and drive market making activities in those.
Fantastic. Thank you for sharing that, and good luck with the Ironman. I can hardly run from my apartment to get the mail, so I really truly envy you, Zinat, and especially thank you, Zinat, for joining us with the odd time zone. Zinat is in Pakistan and it's midnight right now, so thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you so much for having me, Bushra. So my story is not really exciting, to be very honest. We have this typical culture that the Asians usually follow, that if one uncle or one aunt has actually set the benchmark of going to the Silicon Valley or going to the States, then you have to follow the direction and you have to study till you reach that point. So I was kind of pushed into that direction. At first, I was really not into technology, but with the passage of time, like I think in 2011, and with the variety of courses and with the, I'm sorry, am I audible?
You are now. You were frozen for a few seconds. Yeah. Okay. Go ahead.
I'm so sorry for that.
No worries. No worries.
So,
and if there is bandwidth issues, you're welcome to turn off your camera if you need to.
No worries. I will just switch my internet connection if I can be given just 2 more minutes.
Absolutely, you do that, and we'll get back to you. Lisa, so let's coming to the main topic of today. So what was your first brush with the blockchain technology, and how has your journey been since?
Yeah, thank you. So the company that I owned, and we had an innovative team, and the innovative team would keep track of new technologies because we liked to live in that space. And so they really introduced me in a session around blockchain technology, and it must be already 8 years ago at least. And so it was definitely the beginning of blockchain technology, but it wasn't the very, very beginning of blockchain technology. And we actually had a couple of sales leads that came through that talked about, wanting to do some blockchain work. So I had been introduced to it. I definitely understood the complexity. Well, I thought I understood the complexity. Little did I know how challenging and complicated it probably was. I didn't appreciate that when I was first introduced. And then, of course, as it kind of evolved a bit, I had sold that company and started another one. And when we started the next one, I said, we have to understand and jump into blockchain technology. So really, we jumped in. I love, this isn't running an Ironman, of course, but I can't talk to clients about it without really knowing it. So we all took a full-blown architecture course on blockchain technology, an immersive course. It was a 2-week course, and learned a lot about blockchain technology, and then built some prototype projects. And then I'm just hooked to it. And then I've been speaking over the past 3 or 4 years at a variety of organizations and exposing people to blockchain technology. And we have done some mobile/blockchain. A lot of our technology work is in the mobile space. So worked with a lot of startups as well as some finance institutions. So yeah, I think it's so misunderstood, and it's so intriguing, and it's so exciting, and it's all of the things that you said. It's hype and reality and that much more. And that's always intriguing, because really there aren't always a lot of those things going on. And this one is pretty disruptive, and it is quite different. And so that's a space I always like to live in and have been exposed to.
Fantastic. Tatiana, your journey with blockchain?
Yeah, I would say it started probably, I mean, of course, when I studied computer science, like people started talking about it slowly. Hey, there's this thing, it's kind of cheap, but you can make money with it. Like, and of course, being broke student like that, you kind of start listening. But unfortunately, I didn't listen enough. I didn't get into it. But then a bunch of years later, in 2017, when I think the first big BTC run-up happened, I was like, okay, I should put a little money in it, like maybe something more happens. But of course, I was lacking the financial means or the patience to really go big in that. That was my private encounter with blockchain. But then around the same time, also, of course, it was more in the news. Also at work, I was always quite active in our innovation community. So a little bit similar to Lisa, that was more though a self-driven, employee-driven innovation community. So all of a sudden, a bunch of these different activities, proof of concept started popping up that like people would do like pro bono, like really on the side of their work because they were interested, but they would form in groups. One of these projects, for example, was roaming agreements, basically using smart contracts to kind of get rid of the clearinghouse concept that you have in roaming today, which is a very telco specific thing. But the funny thing is today I learned now researching more in it that it became an IEEE recommended way for roaming, which is really cool. We were onto something, but unfortunately it wasn't so well organized back at this point that a lot of these activities didn't make it so far. However, then I rediscovered blockchain in my current role because I have this mandate to look into different technologies that could really change the business for us. One of those was blockchain, and that of course was at first going back to the drawing board and really learning, okay, what is it about? What does it do? And then also understanding in my company, what do we do with it already? Do we have a kind of official point that kind of organizes blockchain activity? And I got crazy lucky finding this guy, not crazy lucky, but I think it's really, really good decisions my company took to encourage this guy and build an organization around him driving different blockchain projects. So it's a good time to shout out to Giovanni, who was recently elected to the board of Quarter, which is really great. And of course, driving blockchain activities with an Ericsson. And I think from there, I really started working closer with him and closer with other blockchain activities and understanding, of course, first learning that everything I learned before was not something so applicable to an enterprise setting. So I'll talk about that a little bit more later, but I learned that in an enterprise setting, when you use blockchain technology, it's quite different, and you use quite different aspects of it. So that was a total revelation and epiphany, and then I realized, wow, it's so useful. So now I'm driving a bunch of different activities where we explore further. Hey, can we bring things live? Some are more advanced than others, of course, but also we do have 3 projects live today.
Fantastic. And it was really interesting to know that what you have started is now actually an IEEE recommended way of going forward with roaming. So that's really good to hear. Zinat, yeah, I think we have you back. So please continue with your story and what's your experience with blockchain been?
First of all, yes, apologies for the inconvenience. Cutting my story short, I think while I was in my bachelor's, I started being curious about different technologies, and that was the time when blockchain and Web 3.0 was really merging, and so that's one of the things. I was an avid writer before joining my engineering. So being an engineer and exploring more about blockchain, I started writing about it. And the more I wrote about it, the more I researched about it, I became more curious, and my interest obviously peaked. So I started with the typical cryptocurrency, but then I did my master's, and then in my master's I had a bi major in HR and marketing, and majority of my marketing projects have been related to the blockchain domain. Be it startups, be it DeFi, be it metaverse. So all in all, I have utilized my knowledge to explore the different domains and use the cases that I have studied or I have experience into this particular field, because it's relatively new. And obviously, the term Web 3.0 came around the time when I was graduating in 2014. So that was the time when the co-founder of Ethereum, I remember it correctly, he named something, and Web 3.0 was like wildfire. It spread like wildfire, and that was something that I started researching on particularly. So yeah, be it engineering or be it in the non-tech side, I have juggled, and I have worked in both of these sides, and I have tried to utilize my knowledge so that I can, make the project successful in the blockchain domain particularly. And as far as I think the moment I fell in love with blockchain was not when I started to learn about typical cryptocurrencies, but when we dig deep into the blockchain technology and the implementation, the blockchain applications, and how we can use it to benefit people. So this is something that is not only contributing to science and technology, but that's also making us grow professionally and personally.
Beautifully said, and so glad to have you back on the internet. Yeah,
so sorry. Yeah.
no worries. We all go through that on a daily basis. So I know there is a lot of interest from our audience in really learning about blockchain use cases beyond cryptocurrencies. That's all we hear about, and we'll get into that. But just before it, Lisa, since you mentioned that you have to take the entire course on architecture to really understand what blockchain is in order to pitch it for projects and products. We would like our audience to leave with a better intuitive understanding of blockchain. How would you explain it without using any of the buzzwords like distributed ledgers, immutable records, anything that's more intuitive and you can understand, oh, okay, that's what blockchain is. Over to you, Lisa.
Wow, you are creating a hard task in a minute or two, not using the buzzword. So let's see. And I'll just talk about it just very generically. And I don't know that it'll be intuitive, but then I'll give my favorite examples. So it is the technology supporting cryptocurrency. So just so that everybody has that in their mind, right? Bitcoin and all of the rest of them are using blockchain technology. And if you can solve money and exchanging money with technology, a very innovative way to keep fraud and validity of the parties that are exchanging money. If you can do that really innovatively, different than we've done before, then you can use that same technology to solve other issues and other problems. And let's just talk about what it is. It's actually back-end architecture. So it's not our mobile front end, it's not our web pages. All of those are feeding into what's in the back-end architecture. And it really is around how you're organizing data. And these data get grouped, your transaction gets grouped in blocks, because we have to say, why did they call it blockchain? I mean, we got to start with why did they call it that? Your transactions, in fact, a couple of different people's transactions are all kind of grouped in a block. And then those blocks are connected together. And what we say is those are connected with a chain, because the chain is very much like you would picture any kind of a long chain where there's links, and you can't take them out of order. They're a really strong chain that is linked together. And we're using a lot of cool technology that makes sure that the one that was linked to this hook, and then the one linked to this one, and the one linked to this one are in that right order. And the chain doesn't get broken, so to speak. And because of this whole new model, which is very different than relational databases, it's very different than even just flat file structures, because you're doing something so different and uniquely, and they have a way to make sure that the chain hasn't been broken, it enables you to do things quite creatively and innovatively with knowing the validity and the passing of that information. Because the thing is if you were just using it in one company and it was just the architecture behind your one software package, it really wouldn't have nearly the same amount of value as it does in the scenario where today we all are sharing information with each other, right? This company is sharing data with this company, and this person is sharing data with this person. I mean, it's endless, the amount of sharing we're doing. And we don't have really great sharing models. We really don't. Everybody's heard of the words APIs or other things, right? And those are how people share things. My favorite example is thinking about one of the things that I love to do is sporting events, or you can say a concert, right? And the tickets and the ticket process. And oh my gosh, it's a crazy nested set of the artist, right, who wanted to sell the ticket for a particular concert, sells a set of tickets, and then somebody else resells them and somebody else wants to buy them. And here's the thing, we want to make sure that when we're buying a ticket, the person we were buying the ticket from gave me a valid ticket so I can go to the concert. I also got to make sure I give them money and that they got my money and they resold it. And then if I can't go to the concert, I want to resell the ticket again. Or maybe this is how I'm going to make a living, is reselling tickets, however it's going to be. All of that is all really risky in current models that we have. And so a blockchain technology could take that to a whole new level of making sure that when I'm the last one to buy the ticket and I go to the door, that ticket is going to be valid, that it was the original person who sold that ticket, the chain all the way through has been validated, and I can make it to that ticket. I can make it to that concert. And so if you want to think about anything, I love the chain of concert tickets and making sure that no one's getting ripped off. No one wants to get ripped off. We want to cut out all the people who are cheating people. We want to cut out all the people who are doing fraud. We want to cut all of them out of the loop. And we want all of us who are doing it the right way and the valid way to be able to have transactions with each other. And that's the real value of blockchain. And that's, I think, how I always like to think about it.
That is one of the best examples I've heard explaining that. We want to get the right, we want to get the valid ticket, but we also want to make sure the person selling the ticket gets our money. So beautifully said. Thank you so much, Lisa. And well, moving from, excuse me, a hypothetical example to maybe a real use case. So would you walk us through a blockchain use case or project that you have worked on in your company? And feel free to take your time. I know our audience are really interested in learning about those projects and use cases.
Did you pick on me again?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. So sure. So one, again, I'll give you one of them that is an interesting one, because a lot of the things that we work, listen, I want to do the ticket one. Actually, it's been done a couple of times, and there's art and there's a variety of different scenarios. But one of our clients actually described this scenario, and you're going to see all of these different pieces that go into it. So here in our housing market here in the United States, the way that it's always worked is that there is usually there's a owner of a house. I own a house and I can buy and sell that home. And what's happened is that houses have become so ridiculously expensive that no one can really afford to buy the house anymore. And those are often out of the reach of many Americans. And so the client came to us and said, all right, what I want to do is there's an old model that's been around in that many people have heard about for vacation places called timeshares. It was very popular in like the 80s. And in a timeshare, I owned a week at a mountain resort or on a beach, and somebody else owned the next week and somebody else owned the next week. So we kind of just shared a property, so to speak. Well, that model doesn't exactly work when you want to live in a house, right? When you want to live in a house, you kind of just want to live in the house. You don't want to share it with anybody else, but things have gotten kind of wacky in our market. And so this idea was to kind of take that timeshare model, except instead of it being multiple people living in the house, it would be multiple people who could own the house. We'd all own a percentage of the house. So it's kind of even like the Friends model, except one person gets to live there, right? So 4 of us friends go in together, we all buy a quarter of a house, and one person is going to actually live in the house. And then that asset could potentially grow. Well, wow, this could really open up things, because then I only have to come up with 25% of this $1 million house, and that I can afford. And so there's no real smart way to kind of do this. And this is a very different model. There's a bunch of legislation and issues like that. But hey, when has innovative technology had to tackle legislation and politics and all of those issues? But this idea is really smart. And so what kind of technology can we use to put this together? Well, again, you're talking about money, you're talking about assets, and you're talking about multiple people. In fact, some of the people might even be companies. They might not be a person, it might be different companies. And maybe I want to sell my 25% share and somebody else wants to buy it. And then, as you see, a whole chain of buying and selling different pieces, but you've got to make sure you've got all of this so that there isn't somebody being able to pretend like that wasn't the agreement, that wasn't the legal agreement, that wasn't the monetary amount, and all of these pieces. And so blockchain is a fantastic solution for that kind of a model. Now, was it only blockchain? No. When people think about blockchain, it is not the one all be all. You still have to create an application layer. You still have to create user interfaces so that people interact with your application. In fact, ours was a mobile app. You'd know what your assets look like. You could look at things, you could pay attention to it, right? As well as a backend, which was all in blockchain. But then there's also reporting structures and admin tools and things like that. So don't anybody think that blockchain is the end all be all for all the technology. It's a very key, important part. But again, it's that back end layer. And there's other pieces that it plays with. It's not the only part of the solution. With that said, it is super important to have models today, because what no one really wants to talk about is how many people are trying to rip people off, breaking into technology, security issues, fraud. Like, it's the thing no one wants to talk about. And because no one wants to talk about it, it's very hard to adopt a technology that can really prevent it. But this is a great solution for preventing something like that. And that was one of our exciting or more interesting use cases.
A great example. And yeah, I do have a follow-up question on some of the issues that blockchain can help us as a preventative measure, and also some of the issues that the technology itself introduces. We'll get to that in a few minutes. Zinat, let me come to you. So I know you have worked quite a bit on the Web3 and Metaverse domain. So please tell us about a blockchain-related project that you did. Feel free to take your time.
Yeah, sure. Thank you for your question. So when the thing that inclined me towards blockchain was its transparency and how it's secure than the conventional centralized systems that exist in the market nowadays. And in the finance sector, blockchain technology has been doing quite some projects, and although other sectors are also adopting it, but the projects are really in the infancy states. As far as my work is concerned, so I have been fortunate to explore the different applications in the blockchain domain, and I recently got a chance to work with a startup, an RPT metaverse startup, and since I have mentioned in it before that I majorly shifted myself from the technical domain entirely to the marketing domain. It doesn't really mean that I do not have to understand the technicalities to implement them. Even if you are for example, me or anyone else is involved in the marketing or the analytics side of it, they need to be really they need to have a thorough understanding of the technicalities of the protocols and the development stages that the project has to go through in order to understand the stages that the project would be going through, the time it would be taking it, be it Unity or Solidity or Unreal Engine, whatever the game is based in particularly. So in my use case, I usually looked after its marketing, be it the community management, be it the social media marketing, be it the using analytics, so the market analytics, and hunting down those trends that are really booming in top publications related to crypto and related to blockchain applications, to blockchain technology, so that the project that I'm working with could really get the sort of traction and engagement that could relate to the crypto enthusiast and can resonate about the game or the project itself. Because I think the projects are really emerging nowadays in this domain, in the metaverse domain, especially after Facebook changed its name to Meta, and everyone's trying to, come into this space. Yes, that's true. But at the same time, I think it's very important that you need to know the key points that could help your project grow, because anyone can make a good project, but it's just the key point is that how it's marketed and how it's solving the problems of people. Even if with games, even if with metaverse projects, it's not just the regular games that people can spend time on and play, but it's the benefits that they're gaining at the end when they get to spend time on the platform, be it through engagements, be it through community support, be it through being backed up by or being or having a shout out by some influencer. We have to strategize this sort of campaigns, and I have been fortunate to lead all of it, because I think I like what I do, because and I'm good at it because I am interested in it. And I guess when you're talking about DeFi or other applications of blockchain, the key is to understand how the project really works. Because if you're not able to understand how the project works and what a product or services it's offering, then it would be difficult to really trace down the market and understand the analytics and the audience as well, so that it could drive traction. Because everything nowadays, it's all numbers, it's all metrics, it's all how this domain and the projects that are rising day by day in this domain are doing in the market. And the project that could sustain is not just how it's built, but how it's marketed, how it's executed,
marketed as well. Yeah,
yes, how
beautifully
it's
said. Yeah,
strategized.
strategize.
Yeah.
Your strategy is extremely important around projects,
Yes.
especially those who utilize the upcoming and trending technologies like blockchain. Thank you for sharing
Yes.
that.
Thank
Tatiana,
you.
coming back to you. So I know you briefly mentioned a use case with Ericsson, but please share more details with us and the audience.
Yeah, maybe first of all, I want to start with this first, because then the use case will make more sense.
Sure.
When approached the blockchain team, the epiphany I kind of had in terms of, okay, when does blockchain make sense? When is blockchain useful to drive a use case, to drive a proof of concept, to bring something live, to help optimize a process? The number one reason there was really when there's a trust issue between companies or entities or whatever parties are involved, of course. I mean, for us, it's of course vendors and companies that are involved. So, I mean, keeping that in mind, it makes a lot of sense when you can and cannot apply this process blockchain and optimize with that. Everything else is just a question of like, how do you automate things? Does it make sense to invest a resource to automate something? Okay. So I'm not going to go into these other rules that we kind of figured out, but it's really like, keep in mind this trust issue, right? So one thing that we do at Ericsson, so it's telecommunications. I know not everyone works in telecommunications. I try to make it as understandable as possible. One really great example, and I shared the link later about the use cases. You know, these towers or base stations, sometimes you drive on a highway, or maybe like in the background of a landscape, you see somewhere like a base station with like some radios and stuff, like kind of in the middle of your landscape. It's a big tower, maybe 30 meters or so high. These are telecom towers. We need them to get our connectivity, right? And it's funny, here in California, we even dress them up a little bit. We make them look like palm trees, and other places of the world, we make them look different. It's really cool. Once I realized that, I was like, oh, that's so nice, actually, because they're not that pretty looking, but they're very functional. However, when something like 5G comes out, which is a new generation of telecommunications, it means we need to go and deploy new radios, different base stations, different stuff on this existing tower. Sometimes we even realize, oh, there's coverage gaps that we need to address, so we need to pull up entirely new towers, which is a huge process. These are really expensive to build, and it's really hard to imagine just installing something on top of that thing, right? We have a crew, a team of rock stars and heroes who are actually tower climbers. They're like engineers who, as a main profession, go to these towers and really climb up there, install stuff, do stuff, maintain them. I mean, they are really, I look up to them so much. I think they're the bread of butter of our industry and of our company. So what happens is, with the new installation, basically, we do it for a customer. A customer asks us, for example, in the US, it would be Verizon or AT&T or T-Mobile. These type of operators will ask us, hey, install that thing. They bought it from us, right? But then a lot of different entities are involved in the process of installation and maintenance and so on. There could be vendors from our side that we outsource. It could be our own people. There could be vendors from the customer side involved, and the customer, of course, themselves is involved. So normally what happens is all these people go on site and they check. So let's say Ericsson goes and installs, and these tower climbers go and install the radio somewhere on the top of this 30-meter big tower. So a bunch of other people need to go up there and go check that thing. Basically say, yeah, everything works right, you know, it's like signed off, you know. So this is such a good case for blockchain, because we can we can basically build an application or we did build an application where now you can actually check it remotely. You can check if the installation worked out remotely. You get a lot of information about the installation, evidence about like, hey, here it works, here are some tests and so on. And now the customer and the other vendors who are involved in the process can actually go and do the sign off and to validate and make sure this is 100% it actually happened and it is the right thing and the audit passed and it's verified. We put this on top of a blockchain concept. What we normally use is we work a lot with Corda. It's not the exclusive thing because it sometimes depends. Other kind of private blockchain setups is where other companies are involved. For example, we have also some finance application where banks already use a certain platform. Then we would, of course, use that platform. But I think it's called Ericsson Customer Acceptance. We released it in Mobile World Congress, which is the industry's biggest event normally, in March. So we released it. It's a live offering that we have now that we use to fulfill our own contracts and commitments, but also we are offering this as a service. And again, I'll share the link to read up because I think it's such a great use case that has nothing to do with any coins or actual finance application, but it's really the trust between companies. And this is normally what we focus on. We are exploring we have a bunch of similar projects like this and other things live, which are only internal, so I can't talk so much about it. But another thing we are exploring right now, very, very early stages, for example, how can we even track our hardware and give a title to hardware when something like warranties and repair commitments are involved. This is very, very important. Like, is this actually the hardware that we gave you to begin with? What is the warranty status of that hardware? So this is something we're looking into as well. A lot of different applications, not finance related.
Thank you for highlighting that. Yeah, that was one of the main motivation of having this panel discussion, that when we think blockchain, people think cryptocurrencies, but it's a backend technology that can support so much and such a diverse list of use cases. And Tatiana, if you share the links with me, I'll make sure that I post them on our website, the ACM Women website, where we have this entire section on celebrating technology leaders. So I'll post it there. Cool. So Lisa, coming back to you, talking about some of the criticisms on blockchain. So I remember reading that article in Verge in 2019, and there it said that Bitcoin consumes more energy than Switzerland. And then later on, also there was an article, I think in the New York Times, where it says that Bitcoin has this, it's not environmental friendly, it has a huge carbon footprint. So would you say that the blockchain technology in general is environmentally unfriendly, or is it more the way cryptocurrencies work that generate this kind of concern?
Yeah, really good questions. And I think all of us are concerned about any technologies that we're using or any innovations that we're using and how it's going to impact the world and what that looks like. I guess, let me just, for the audience's perspective. So I described the chain. The reason that the chain becomes one of the reasons that a chain can become secure is because you're duplicating basically that chain on computers all over the world. And then those computers, in order to validate that nothing's been broken, use power, run, do some processing energy in order to have the whole system work both economically, because no one wants to do things for free, right? You all have computer power that's running, both economically and that supports the security. So what ends up happening is there's all of these computers that are running all over the world in order to make sure that the whole thing works. And they're not owned by any company per se, they're owned by anybody, right? Anybody can own these computers, from a person to a set of people to a company. And so the power consumption is because of this way that it's processing. There have been, and it's true with all technologies, as something takes off and and one more thing, those are public blockchains. There are many cases where it's a private blockchain. In fact, when it's a company to a company to a company, those are most often not public blockchains. They are what we call a private blockchain. They function very similarly, but it's not computers running, well, it can be in different locations in the world, but it's using much different processing amount of speed. And so the arguments around the ethics do come into kind of two camps. For private blockchains, they're running on computers already. There's a variety of different things. I don't know that that's really the case. It's really on the public side. And so with cryptocurrencies specifically, they have looked at some different models that can reduce the computer power and still provide the ability for people not to cheat. And it all comes down to money and power and transaction speed and things like that. And so, yes, the way we currently do things in a couple of iterations are not environmentally friendly, but I have no doubt those will solve themselves. There are ways already that have been proven, and that some of the new technologies will take that on. So to me, that side of the ethical concern is one piece. We really see ethics in three pieces: the environment, data being forever, so to speak, and then really crime. And I hear about the crime one probably more than even the other two, right? The data being forever, it's often obfuscated by a long string of codes. And so tracking down who that really is most lay people would never be able to do. And it would be challenging. And so this data forever, really, I think that comes out a bit more from people not understanding exactly how it can be utilized in a very, from my perspective, in a safe way. The crime, on the other hand, it's real and it's not. Of course, there's crime. What did we just describe? Like money and exchanging between untrustworthy parties and trying to come up with a way to solve that. So, yeah, do I believe that there are opportunities to utilize that technology in ways that we wouldn't be that are crime or otherwise? Of course. But the thing is they use other technology too. So to pick on this technology and say, okay, well, this made it just even easier, I think is a weak solution in not looking at adopting technology. Every new technology will have those issues, whether it's AR technology and you're worried about a whole other set of issues, you have to manage them. So I'm not saying that they're not important and we don't want discussions around them, and we want to have, all of us want to have these discussions. But the beauty of blockchain is actually to reduce theft and the crime that is not by the typical criminal. No one looks at what happens in fraud and what happens in the business world with how much loss and cheating and real crime is happening in those transactions. They only look at the ones that are drug related or something that we perceive as crime. If we are able to reduce the amount of fraud that happens worldwide in transactions, it significantly changes the world's economy in a positive way. And I focus on that instead of the opportunity that someone who is using it for illegal drugs or something else has an easier path. And I think that it's just too easy to talk about from a marketing PR standpoint, and the opportunity for reducing it where it's in the other places is really just too valuable to shut something down because of some fear or ways, not just fear, but some other uses of whatever that technology might be. So hope that answers your question.
No, absolutely. And I love the way you said it happens in like three buckets. One is the environment. The other one is the data living forever. And the third one is crime. Yeah, that's a good way to think about that. Tatiana, coming to you, would you like to share your input on a few ethical considerations that maybe businesses and engineers should be aware of, and some steps that perhaps Ericsson takes to mitigate some of those?
Yeah, for sure. And also piggybacking, of course, of what Lisa's saying, going into the private blockchains, because this is what we work with at Ericsson, right? Like we don't really deal at all with public blockchain. And of course, the main driver there is, again, the trust thing and to reduce how much fraud can happen, because no one is really, even big corporations are not really protected unless we have those mechanisms in place. And this is where the private blockchain really helps us, of course, also with the energy consumption, that you have a peer-to-peer kind of network and validation that is on a need-to-know basis. So even if a lot of, so this is also a nice part about the ethical concerns where you're worried about your privacy and hey, everyone gets the same kind of data. No, it's actually not the case in a private blockchain. Even when, for example, in this other application, let's say a lot of banks are already onboarded on this blockchain marketplace and platform, so they are already there, but they will never see your information. It is only the parties that you define have any kind of stake in it that you actually say these are involved. It just makes life easier to use a platform which kind of everyone use, and that I think is also a big Web3 kind of consideration, that you have a standardization, right? Like if everyone has a different blockchain mechanism, a different blockchain platform, it is hard to really guarantee standards and privacy and security concern and really make sure that the validity of all the algorithms, right? So by standardizing or use a platform that is very, very adapted in the market, that helps mitigating some of that. And yeah, another, it's really simple aspects, like, for example, we don't tie blockchain to people or employees. We would never do that. I mean, that's of course like super that would be such a big issue, of course, but it's rather the legal entities, right? Or like the organizations they are tied to any kind of transactions or proof that needs to be generated there. Another thing is liability and responsibility. If something goes wrong, who takes care of what? But we have super complex customer contracts. So all the legal kind of and contractual commitments are of course covered in that, where we really clearly define liabilities. Plus, of course, for example, talking again about Corda, if you use those guys, which I'm just using as an example because they are very widespread in the enterprise blockchain domain, right? They're one of the most used platforms. They have their own legal agreements as well. So everyone covers kind of their own back by legal agreement. And that's very important to know where exactly the responsibility lies. So that helps a lot.
Thank you. That was very comprehensive, and I really appreciate you going over in detail and also differentiating between people versus legal entities and public versus private blockchain. Zinat, coming to you, and I wanted to ask this question, especially as you have learned blockchain yourself, because your interest peaked there. So since blockchain skills are becoming more and more sought after, would you recommend some beginner-friendly courses, resources, communities, where if our audience is interested, they can go and learn more? Hopefully for free or as less money as possible.
Yeah, sure. I think if you have basic SQL knowledge, and if someone is interested in the analytics side of blockchain, then they can go and explore the educational content at Dune Analytics and Flipside Crypto. They are two very good platforms. And then we always have Coursera and Udemy for understanding the different courses related to the languages and the understanding the development stages. And then I'm just trying to keep it short. So then the third phase would be if you have a basic understanding of blockchain and you want to interact with people who are crypto enthusiasts, basically, and you want to participate in the communities. So for that, you can visit the Layer 3 platform. You can join that. And other than that, there are many communities on Telegram as well that you can explore according to your interest and the projects that you are involved in or interested in. Then there are, since there are many projects coming around, the DAO launch pads, and you want to really get into the hype and understand which projects is better, and from the crypto point of view, what project has the most financial worth in the crypto market, in the blockchain market, then you can obviously read Yahoo Finance, you can read Crypto Compare, you can obviously go through Cointelegraph. These are some of the resources that we that I actually have on my fingertips that I usually recommend to the students and the people who come to me and they want to start their careers in the blockchain domain. And one more thing I want to add, not related to this part, but something that Lisa and Tatiana had said regarding the ethical issues. It's not that from the marketing perspective there are no ethical issues. One issue that I usually face is the transparency and how transparent the project is, because there are many scams. So you need to research about the project, you need to understand the technicalities of the project, and obviously there is the when you register yourself, you attach a wallet and you are uh, linking the real time and the digital wallet, then there's money involved, like Lisa mentioned, and there could be theft. So for that, I think blockchain technology itself holds a lot of potential, and I think hacking is possible in the conventional finance as well, but it's just that we should introduce such systems, and I think with the passage of time it would be happening around that malware could be detected at an early stage, and data theft or financial loss could be prevented.
Thank you for sharing that. And what I'll do is I also saw a couple of audience questions come in. I'll make a list of these resources, and I'll also ask Lisa and Tatiana for resources and then post it on our website. I'm sharing the link of our website. It's in the chat. So if you could please keep a tab on that, and I will make sure that I make a list of all these resources and I post it there. I do want to get to one more question. So I think we have about 4 minutes. We can do it. All right. What we started with, hype versus reality. Zenith, starting from you. Blockchain, what is hype? What are grandiose claims which are not possible today? And what is possible today?
I think blockchain technology itself is growing. It has explored a lot of potential in the finance sector, and the other industrial implications are yet to be taken care of. The applications need to be explored. The scams particularly need to be prevented. No system can be foolproof. Because the hacking industry, or the hackers who do this sort of misconduct, are also learning the same technology as we do. So we have to be smarter, and we have to cope up with the changing times. I recently saw that the Time magazine was posting about metaverse, and how a lot of people were commenting that it's being overhyped. So I wouldn't completely agree to it, but as a person, I think if this does come into the reality, not as a typical marketer, but as a person with a non-CS background or a non-tech background, people might find it hard to differentiate between the AR, between the physical and the real-time events that are happening versus the events that are happening in the metaverse, and we need to be really ready for it.
Thank you. And I especially appreciate your discussing the metaverse side of things. That's a whole new discussion. Hopefully one day we'll have a full panel on that. Tatiana, hype versus reality.
Yeah, I think in an enterprise context, of course, it is always a thing where a company needs to consider, like, does it make sense for me? Does it fix a problem? Is the use case valid, and so on. So I'm not going to go into that. We are thinking a little bit right now. We are preparing a blog about the metaverse and what role blockchain will play in that, and how it will look like also for enterprises. And I think 5G will play a big role in that, because at some point the metaverse and all of these, or the IFLAN, as KT released that, of course, that's also something to be considered. At some point it will move outdoors, and you will need connectivity. So it is kind of very, very big on our agenda. I think the one thing And I think it's happening to some extent for sure, because it is a way how we can put a layer on our reality that can actually help us do things. I mean, we can all become a little bit more superhuman and super extra smart if we augment our reality with all the power of the internet. So that's pretty promising. That's pretty cool, right? Huge security issues and of course all that stuff. I just think the only consideration that I want to put up here is, in the end, Web3 and the new kind of internet will be built on whatever we have existing on top. So it means subsections will be impacted by it, but other sections will not. And this is something that we need to keep in mind. How do we have a coexistence with our legacy kind of internet and whatever new thing comes along, and how will they integrate over time? I think that's something that we keep thinking with the metaverse hype and all of these things, that it will happen tomorrow and this will be the new reality and the new normal, but it's not like that realistically. And this is coming from this telco experience where we still have 2G networks and 3G networks, and we have to think, when we develop a 4G and 5G networks, how are they interoperable with each other? And I think the internet will have a similar architectural challenge, which is very, very complex. So I think it will be very interesting how Web3 will evolve in that context.
Absolutely. We all will be looking forward to that. Before coming to Lisa, just a quick note for our audience. I am sending a link of a feedback form. It will just take 2 minutes or less. It will help me understand how the session was, if you found the discussion useful or not, and what future topics would you like us to have discussions on. So if you can please take 2 minutes and fill that form, I will be really grateful. Lisa, last but not the least, hype versus reality.
Thank you. So I guess from my perspective, I want to end on, I think sometimes the hype is being created by us, the techies themselves. And I think what's happening is that it's really complex and you would have to learn something significantly different. This isn't just a little different. This isn't just like, oh, when they came out with a new language and now you went from C to C++, or you learned something new. This is significantly different and it's very hard. And so I think sometimes techies are very afraid of something new and hard and something they don't know and they're not comfortable with. And on top of that, techies and the people in charge of the technology groups want to try to hide how many times things are broken into, how fragile their systems are, because you don't want to be the person in charge of a whole thing to say, holy shit, I'm scared. Things are being broken into. We're not very secure. We are, I don't know, even, so that's not what they want to do. And so they hide the problem. And so we have to stand up and own what we've created and the risks that we have. Because you don't just put in a new blockchain solution overnight. It's reinventing a whole part of your application. It's very complex. You'd have to start it much ahead of time. And it's not like you can just do this little tiny pet project and it solves anything. So to deal with real issues, we have to really look innovatively around what our options are going to be. And what my biggest fear is that because the technologists themselves are afraid of this new thing and are afraid of what if it fails and are afraid of all of these things, then they become the obstacle for moving things forward. And so the group on this call loves technology and cares about it and is passionate about it, but we often don't know enough about it. And so our own ignorance creates our own fear, which creates hype to me and creates a negative side of it. And so I hope that you've taken a little bit today and then the resources that Jan that the group has shared and learn a little bit more about it so that we ourselves can help promote what can be a very significant future piece of what this technology could look like.
So beautifully said, that we as technologists have to stand up and own what we have created and all its sides. Thank you so much, Lisa, Tatiana, Zeynat. What a fantastic discussion in the last hour. I personally learned a lot. And thank you for sharing all those resources for our audience. As I said, I'll compile them and post them on the link. Thank you again. And really, really appreciative of volunteering your time for us. All right, for the audience, until next time, we'll be back with another panel and talking about another career in tech. Thank you so much. Until next time.